Hi, and welcome to Best in Tesla. So, we are no longer waiting for it to play out. We are seeing it play out right now. Legacy automakers in China are dying right in front of our eyes, being cut off by the knees as ICE cars keeps falling faster and faster off the cliff, while EVs are still growing, but not as fast as the overall car market is dropping. So we are seeing the famous Valley of Death play out right now as well. Legacy automakers are not ready for what is about to hit them in 2023, and already hit them here in Q1. So let's check it all out and let's dive right in. So, as I said already last year, we will see the legacy automakers having a big drop in car sales in China in 2023, as China will probably have something like 30 to 40% plug-in vehicle market share in 2023. And no one of the legacy automakers have 30 to 40% plug-in vehicles in their production. No one of them have even last year's plug-in market share in their production for this year. Because in 2022, there was about 27 million vehicles sold in China and 7 million were plug-ins. That's 25% of the world's biggest market effectively disappearing from the perspective of petrol and diesel car makers. And I don't really count hybrids as electric vehicles, but I always count them in when we are looking at the overall car market and how the pure internal combustion engines are doing, because both BEVs and hybrids will steal sales from ICE cars. So to get an idea of how fast the ICE car sales are dropping, we have to take hybrids into the calculation as well, as BEVs will not tell the whole story of the demise of the pure ICE car. And we do see the BEVs is taking over, rising much faster than hybrids. And now we just heard that Audi will even stop making hybrids and focus on ICE sales and BEVs, as their hybrids fall off a cliff in Q1. And the drop in ICE sales and the rise of electric vehicles goes much faster than any of the legacy automakers thought. Remember, only back in 2020, Ford and GM only thought they should produce about 160,000 BEVs in 2025. Boy, were they wrong. Yeah, it came as a big surprise for them and the rest of the legacy automakers. But even EV startups have underestimated the adoption of EVs. Back in 2021, in the Reuters article, they reported that the EV sales in China were expected to hit 35% in 2025. And that was a quote from Xpeng's CEO. And then fast forward to March 2023, and Bloomberg is forecasting that the Chinese market is likely to reach that milestone this year. So legacy automakers are not ready for what is about to hit them here in 2023. We are talking about 35% of the biggest market on the planet going to be plug-ins, and China stands for about 34% of the global car market in 2022. So China has an effect on the overall car market globally, whether you like it or not. But it is not just China, of course. Even here in Europe, the plug-in market in 2022 was 23% of the market, and we only have to go back 3 years from that to 2019, and the plug-in market was only 3.6% of the market. So a nice exponential growth there. So I do expect the plug-in market here in Europe to be above 30% in 2023 as well. So that will be about 60% of the global car market. China and Europe combined will be somewhere above 30% plug-in this year. So as I said before, if you as an automaker are only making about 10 or maybe getting up to 15% of your production being plug-ins in 2023, you will lose about 15 to 20% of your sales in 2023, as you are not making the supply for the demand we are seeing. And that is what we're seeing in China right now, as the Japanese, German, and the US traditional automakers have been slow to develop EV production, as none of the legacy automakers are really producing EVs at scale. Volkswagen is the one that's getting closest, but their growth has kind of slowed down. EVs only make up like 2.0% of Toyota's total production, meaning the shift to EVs is also a market shift to Chinese brands like BYD and Tesla, of course, which dominate the global EV sales. And even with the Volkswagen Group that made a big jump in 2021, and everyone was talking about how they will take on Tesla, well, as more choices came out and they fired Herbert Diess, well, their sales of new energy vehicles in China fell in Q1 of 2023. Their retail sales in China were also down 12 and 16% with the two joint ventures, but even their electric vehicles that are rising were down 4% in Q1 year over year. So not only are they seeing their ICE sales fall off a cliff, but they are even struggling with their EV sales in China. That is not a good sign, but a sign of their EVs not up to the task. And we are seeing someone like GM dying in China in real time right now in front of our eyes. Their retail sales in China with their two joint ventures was down 30% and 34% in Q1. That is not a small drop, that is a death blow. Even their new energy vehicle sales with the Wuling joint venture was down 26%. So GM has nothing going for them in China. Nothing. They are dying in China. And the Japanese automakers that are hardly making any BEVs is really struggling in China as well. They are also dying right in front of our eyes in China. Both Toyota, Honda, Nissan sales were declining in China last year. Toyota only a very little bit, but Nissan and Honda was down significantly in 2022. But already here in Q1 of 2023, we see Toyota has lost 12% compared to last year. I think the only reason they are still holding on a little bit better than the other Chinese OEM is because they are making more plug-in hybrids. But their wholesales in China are down even more than their retail sales. So their domestic sales were down by 12%, but including their exports, they were down 16%. So not an insignificant amount here. But then look at Nissan's wholesales, down 40%. That is not slowly dying. That is being cut off by the knees. Nissan could very well file for bankruptcy in China this year if this continues, as that is not sustainable for very long. And we can see the trend continues of the overall car market being down. So the car market in China was down about 6.7% in Q1, and the winners were the Chinese automakers and Tesla, as the Chinese brands combined was up 5.5%, while we see the Japanese brands were down 32%. The German brands were down 9%, and the US brands were down 8.8%, even though Tesla, the US brand, was up 26%. So even though BYD is up in new energy vehicle sales by 80% in wholesales and Tesla up 26%, and the overall new energy vehicle sales is also up about 26% in China, the overall car market is down. And if you're thinking, but what about the hydrogen, the ramp of the hydrogen, how is that going in China? Well, it is down 6.8% in China in Q1, from almost nothing to 6.8% less than almost nothing. Yes, the hydrogen car is dead even before it got started. But with new energy vehicles rising, except hydrogen, but the overall car market still down, we are seeing the famous valley of death play out right now. There is more demand for EVs than there are EVs being produced. So people are holding off buying a new ICE car until they can get an EV they want. they don't want to buy an ICE car right now, as all the Chinese people of course know they will be pretty much worthless in a couple of years, as we have already seen the used ICE cars drop in price by as much as 40% this year, also because of the whole price war going on in China and the hundreds of thousands of ICE car vehicles in dealerships that they will no longer be able to sell after July of this year because of a more restrictive emission standard being put in place. Not something the legacy automakers were not aware of, as this was put in place in 2016, giving the automakers 7 years to get this in place. That should be enough time for most of them to get a whole new platform up and running, but apparently not running fast enough. But that is all on them. Tesla went from nothing in China in terms of production to having one of the world's biggest car factories in the country, and from 76,000 units sold globally in 2016 and having only the Model S and X on the market, to now having the Model 3 and the Y being out, and the Model Y was the best-selling car of any kind in March in China this year. Tesla make it look like the other OEMs have been sleeping the whole time. But as I said, the valley of death is real, and this is the secret pinned up demand I was talking about in my video almost 2 years ago. And Tesla and BYD are leading the way in China. Even though BYD is the second biggest EV maker globally, only about 7% of those sales happens outside of China. As we can see, their wholesales and retail sales are almost the same. So if a recession really is going to hit China, that could be a bad thing for BYD, as they are not really set up for global sales just yet, so they are a bit more vulnerable than someone like Tesla in that regard. And we can see that Tesla did grow in sales in Q1, even compared to Q4, where BYD was actually down. So BYD still sees a seasonal change in their demand, which is also quite big in China. But that only makes Tesla's record quarter in Tesla in China even more impressive. Tesla grew about 11% in China from Q4 to Q1, where even though BYD was up 80% year over year, they were actually down 20% compared to Q4. So I don't think we will see as crazy a growth story this year with BYD as we saw in 2022, but still grow. But Tesla seems to continue its growth with no slowdown. And remember, Q2 is going to look like Tesla growing out of control when it comes to sales compared to year over year in percentage. As it was in April last year, Tesla's Shanghai factory was shut down because of COVID and has no sales in April whatsoever. And May was also very small. So Tesla's Q2, especially in China, is going to look even bigger than it probably is, as the comparison to last year's numbers is going to be almost irrelevant. Except we can see how much sales Tesla have in Q1 that we can add to this year's production numbers that Tesla missed out on last year. But this is happening right now. We are not waiting for it anymore. It's happening right now. The EV adoption continues, as many of us in the Tesla community had predicted in many videos, but came as a big surprise for the legacy automakers. And this will be their downfall, as the valley of death is real and playing out right now, and the legacy automakers are dying right in front of our eyes in China, and the EVs are taking over fast. 2023 will be the year we start to see the legacy automakers fall. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.